Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Earthly Headlines. This article that I wanted to go over yesterday, but I couldn't get around to it, so I'm doing it today. I just want to let you guys know that Neanderthals were just as capable of creating fire as the early Homo Sapiens were able to. And this article right here, entitled Neanderthals Were Really All Fired Up by Gemma Tarlak. This article refers to another article, which I'll show you, about new implications regarding the cognitive ability of Neanderthals, as well as the tools they used in everyday life. So this is a very interesting article. Members of the genus Homo were using fire for at least 1 million years. That's widely accepted. And it was also believed by many scientists that Neanderthals simply collected fire from natural occurrences, like lightning strikes. There is this, just to fill in a couple of gaps here, Neanderthals, there's very little evidence in the archaeological record that they had specific fire-making tools. The only thing that they found in regards to Neanderthals using fire are just hearths and charred bones and stuff like that. But there was no real smoking gun tool that they used. Like, for example, with Homo Sapiens, they found flint and pyrite. And everybody knows that if you smash flint together with pyrite, it'll, create sparks and fire. So scientists didn't believe that that Neanderthals had the cognitive skills to produce fire themselves. Instead they believed that they collected wildfires and they relied on lightning strikes and stuff to have fire, which seems really difficult, and it seems like they'd be waiting around a long time. They needed the correct materials and tools to create sparks, ignite tinder, to layer that on with more flammable materials, and then add oxygen at the right time. So they had to. Scientists don't believe that Neanderthals had that ability to make fire, which is pretty complex. Like, a monkey can't do it for sure. A dog can't do it, right? So like I said, archaeological record is full of evidence of fires. They have a hard time finding the actual tools used in fire production due to this thing called pyrite decay. So they find these they find these materials, but they don't last very long. So they only go back a couple tens of thousands of years. So they don't have anything, well, up until now, they didn't have anything older than that. They couldn't find anything, and they couldn't find any tools, stone tools, which last forever, with any pyrite residue. So anyway, continuing on, pyrite. Much of the material needed to create campfires has decayed due to exposure to humid air. So humid air basically does away with the pyrite rather quickly, and it just disappears. So at Homo Sapiens sites, flint tools have been discovered to determine they were producing fire on their own over 10,000 years ago. The first use of fire, not by Homo Sapiens, but just the first Homo people in the genus Homo, it's about 1 million years ago. Between 1 million to 800,000 years ago is about the accepted time. So up until now, scientists have not found any instruments like the ones they found at Sapien sites to prove whether Neanderthals produced fire. So with that reasoning, plus the commonly held belief that Neanderthals did not have the brain power to start fire, this led scientists to assume that they merely collected wildfires, like I said before. Scientists have collected this thing called manganese oxide from these Neanderthal sites. Up until now, they assumed these were used as body decoration, because it's true, you could take this powder and wipe it on yourself and put it. It's like a prehistoric makeup, I guess. The same was used with charcoal and other sooty material. But this new study suggests that they added powdered manganese to their tinder to make it easier to combust. So they were lacing their tinder with this stuff because they were starting their own fire, right? So if you're lacing this stuff with manganese oxide, you're probably not just waiting around for a lightning strike. You probably already have a way to ignite that fire on your own. So how is this possible? So how did the team get to this conclusion? Well, the team analyzed microwear patterns on their hand X's, or bifaces, which was found in 50,000-year-old European Neanderthal sites. Now, these hand axes they weren't like a consumable item. They used these hand axes for many different things, probably cutting wood, prying open shells maybe, and also starting fires. Whereas with Homo sapiens, they kind of used the flint and discarded them after a few uses. I don't know how important that detail is, but I think it's pretty important because it's a detail that they didn't come across before, and I'm sure a lot of scientists did not think about it in that way. Anyway, so the flat edges of these bifaces showed consistent pattern of microwear, and further analysis showed they were not random, meaning the percussive strikes were not random. And in fact, they found C-shaped marks consistent with percussive strikes. There's an edge where you use to cut stuff, like the cutting edge, and then there's the flat end, the flat side. So they're looking at the flat side, and that side had the C-shaped marks. I'm going to pull up these pictures right here. Yeah, right here. So these are the multiple views of the bifaces analyzed in the study, which revealed patterns of microwear consistent with percussive striking. So side A and side B right here you can see. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but let me try to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Okay. So these are black and white images, but still you can make out these C-shaped marks here on the top left, A, and then B, image B, the 200 nanometer image. You can see those vertical straight line strikes left by smashing it against something, probably another rock or something like that. Although they have not found pyrite residue on these tools, they're gonna investigate that possibility with new cutting edge analysis, specifically RAMAN spectroscopy, which is a non-destructive and invasive way to build a chemical profile of residue. So once those results start coming out, then I'll probably make another video on that. The most important part of these findings are the implications. Although the findings are very intriguing, it still won't. It's not enough for some people to come to the conclusion that Neanderthals produced their own fire at will. But it does suggest that they were capable of more complex cognition and behavior than long thought. So they're getting more cred, so to speak, whereas before they were just, no one really explored or questioned the idea that they were just dumb and they just didn't have the quote brain power to do something as complex as start fires and live in large scale societies and stuff like that, even though they had huge brains, I think about 15% bigger than Homo sapiens brains, which to some people that doesn't mean anything, but I think there is something to that. I've always thought there was something to that. I've just been waiting for the evidence. The most tantalizing part of these findings is it opens up a new line of inquiry into our evolutionary past. So Homo erectus, which is an allegedly older, they go back about 2 million years, I think, or 2.5 million years. They had these similar bifaces as Neanderthals did. So if the Neanderthals used these tools to start fires, then it's possible that Homo erectus did as well. I mean, it's not maybe some people wouldn't go out on that limb, but it does make a lot of sense that this older genus of Homo, they found these same or very, very similar stone tools that are now found to have started fire. And the other thing that I think some scientists don't want to explore is that these other species of human that are not sapiens, they're very reluctant to put them on par with us, meaning Homo sapiens is head and shoulders above everything else, and that's kind of a biased stance because we don't know exactly what the capabilities were of those Neanderthals. Not even Neanderthals, but Erectus and Antecessor and Denisovan and all these other branches of humans. They may well have been just as smart as we were. They may well have had what you would call a language, a spoken language, an oral tradition that just died out. that there's no, maybe they didn't have an alphabet, maybe they didn't have a written language, but there is evidence that they've produced artwork like cave paintings and small statues, like I think there was one from Australia called the lion, is from Stottle Cave. Where's Stottle Cave? I think that might be Germany. I'm not sure. But anyway, there's the Lion Man figurine that's about 38,000 years old. And this is all creative thought. This is all produced from the imagination. It's anthropomorphism is the anthropomorphic images found in these cave paintings as well is I think is evidence of original thought and imaginative thought, because especially since the for about 100 years or so, they quote cavemen or mongoloid or whatever label that they had, they didn't give these ancient humans any credit. They're just all dumb. But more and more evidence is coming out, and more scientists are exploring the possibility that, hey, they're a lot more advanced than we think. So this is what I love about this study. Before we end this one, though, I want to go on the actual scientific reports that posted this study. So here in the beginning, they say the usual interpretation is that these are manganese oxides collected for their coloring properties. Now, this was the main idea. The long-held thought that they were just used for this manganese oxide is nothing more than coloring properties, and it's all associated with decoration. But the decorative use might imply that any black material soft enough to mark and resilient enough for the mark to remain could have been used, meaning that they could have used carbon-rich materials other than black manganese ores. So a lot of scientists are sweeping all of these carbon-rich materials and they're putting them all in one box, which is this decoration box. That's kind of dangerous to do that, because you don't know unless you study every single black material or carbon-rich material and make sure that they don't have any other uses, which is what these scientists did. They explored their chemical properties and their oxidizing and catalytic properties. So they took these small black blocks, BLOCs, which they uncovered in this layer of earth, which was excavated in the 50s. And then they compared them to the blocks found at Pec de la Haze in France, which are the ones with the abrasion marks that they found at the at the Neanderthal sites. And they wanted to address whether Neanderthals were selecting a specific manganese oxide from a range of manganese ores in the region, and if so, whether this material is more effective in other functions than materials that Neanderthals did not select. So they analyzed 24 blocks from the site, and they found that they were consistent with the composition of manganese dioxide. Here's a photo that they have of the combusted from the actual experiment that shows the wood mixtures showing small red flames and the glowing fire combustion phase, which is indicative of the use of manganese dioxide as a catalyst. So if you lace a tinder with this stuff, it'll burn a lot easier, so you don't have to sit there and hope the sparks alone will ignite the wood or ignite the tinder, which it does. It just, if you've ever started your own fire, you know how long it takes to do it. Some people are better at it than others, but if you had something like manganese oxide and laced it with the tinder, then it'd be much, much easier, and you wouldn't have to spend as much energy making that fire, which is, if this is true, then Neanderthals probably were ahead of Homo sapiens in fire making. So the combustion experiments they did, it was a series of statistically designed combustion experiments were used to assess whether fire making could be facilitated using wood and either commercial manganese oxides or powdered material from the site blocks. Let's cut to the nitty-gritty here. Infrared thermal imaging data showed that while the wood turnings did not ignite at 350 degrees Celsius, the mixtures of wood turnings with manganese dioxide could ignite at temperatures from around 250 degrees Celsius and sustain combustion over a surprisingly wide range of temperatures. So that not only does the wood ignite with the manganese dioxide, it requires less heat to do so, which again makes it way easier, and it makes sense. If something like this existed and you're a Neanderthal and knew it existed, not even a Neanderthal, if you're just a prehistoric person and you knew about this, you would definitely use this rather than the alternative if it were available. And according to the scientists, it seems like this was widely found in most of the Neanderthal sites, which again is a huge deal. I'm going to post this article in the description underneath, and there's a lot of implications here in terms of archaeological evidence and block abrasion and grinding stones. So what do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. Do you think this is BS? Do you think this is a stretch? And are the scientists who are discussing this possibility of Neanderthals starting their own fires, is this BS, or are they reaching here, or does it make sense? Please let me know, because to me it makes a lot of sense. Okay, I think that about does it for this. I hope you guys have a good weekend. I'm gonna put more content up in the coming days. There's a lot of stuff to cover. I originally wanted to do more than one story for each video, but there's just so much in each story that I feel it would be better to do this one at a time. So feedback is definitely welcome. I hope I'm not off base with this, because this really does make a lot of sense to me. But please have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.